Hello everyone and welcome to another game from round 5 of this year's FIDE World Cup. It is Wei Yi versus Sam Sevian, and the winner of this clash goes straight into the quarterfinals, and then, there's only 8, and out of those 8, 3 go into the candidates tournament in 2026. It's a really weird game because straight out of the opening, as soon as one of the players was out of book, so to say, a blunder occurs. Or maybe it's not a blunder. Maybe it's no, it's definitely a blunder. I wouldn't call blundering material an inaccuracy. So really, really odd that something like this happens at this level, but it does. So many games being played, mistakes will happen. So let's check it out. Wei Yi with white opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5, and we have a pretty standard knight of 3, knight c6, knight c3, knight to f6, and bishop to b5. The Spanish variation of the 4 knights. We have bishop to b4 going symmetrical. The so-called double Spanish. We have castles, castles, again doing the symmetrical stuff. Bishop captures on c6 and d captures on c6, where d3 is by far the most common reply, but here knight captures on e5 by Wei Yi. And it has been played even at the absolute top level. For example, Magnus Carlsen played it twice against Hikaru Nakamura. Bishop captures on c3, d captures, and knight captures on e4, inviting for a queen trade, but of course bishop to f4. Why would you trade when you want your rooks to be developed? You want your opponent to capture your queen, so you get the free rook into the game. And there are some games where bishop to f5 was played. Interestingly, Wei Yi already had this position with white against Yuan Yi this year in the Chinese league, so maybe that's sort of a template game that Sam was using to prepare for this game against Wei Yi. In that game, bishop to f5 was played by Yuan Yi, but here we have knight back to d6 by Sam, and it is now as of move 9 that we have a completely new game. So you can see they are both above the hour and 30-minute mark, so they are both still well within their preparation, or maybe only one of them, because Wei Yi plays queen to f3. He burns almost 10 minutes on this move, and we have bishop to f5. So in the exact same move that Wei Yi was out of book and he spent some time on this queen f3, bishop to f5 is a blunder. Now, why is it a blunder? Is it something that you can just overlook? Because he played it fairly quickly. First, as I was watching, I thought, nah, it's not a blunder. Don't listen to what the engine says. He played it really quickly. He got Wei Yi out of preparation. Obviously, it's, some sort of a devious long-term idea. But no, he just missed it. So what did he miss here? Do you see it? Even without pausing the video, I'm sure you can, because it's sort of screams to be played. Knight captures on c6. And the point is that the bishop on f5 is undefended. Or rather, it's not undefended, but you can easily remove the defender. And now b captures on c6 cannot be played. If you capture it, then just bishop captures, and after queen captures, you capture on f5. White is up a pawn. Also, black has a double c-pawn. That's going to be terrible with queen and 2 rooks in the game. Maybe it's not lost by default, but, between 2 players of equal strength, white will win this. So after knight captures on c6, we have queen to d7. This is, something that might be considered compensation, but just knight back to d4. And okay, Wei Yi asks, okay, I burned a lot of time grabbing that pawn. Where's the compensation? Well, he does have half an hour extra on the clock, but also bishop to e4. Okay, we have queen to g3. And knight to f5, attacking the queen and offering a trade of knights. And there's no reason not to trade, but Wei Yi says, nope, let's just go queen g4. Let's stop any unnecessary trades. Your queen on d7 would be hanging. So pawn to h5, trying to trade the h-pawn for capturing on d4 and then also grabbing the pawn on d4. Wei Yi says, no, I'm just gonna keep this diagonal so you can develop your rook. And okay, Sam does. Rook a to d8. We have rook a to e1, and now knight captures on d4. We have queen captures on d7, rook captures, and rook captures on e4. We have knight back to e6. If you go knight captures on c2, yes, the pawn is undefended, but that knight is never getting back into the game. Rook e2, and the knight is lost. There's just no square for the knight available. So after rook captures on e4, we have knight back to e6, and just bishop bishop to e3, nicely controlling that knight. So Wei Yi is up a pawn. It's a double C pawn, so it's not spectacular, but you're up a pawn and you didn't really have to do anything for it. You burned a little bit of time, but Sam also burned a little time trying to get back into the game somehow. So rook to d6, trying to be active, maybe go after those queenside pawns, maybe also be able to shift the rook kingside. Rook to e5, asking what do you do about the undefended h5 pawn. Pawn to g6, Sam defends it. We have pawn to f4, now preparing pawn to f5. So Sam advances the pawn to f5 himself, because other than that, there's really no way to stop it, and then white would just be controlling too much space. So pawn to f5, this does weaken the g6 pawn, but it's very unlikely that Wei Yi will be able to go after it. We have pawn to c4. Now, of course, preparing to get the rook to e1 to put pressure on that knight, maybe b4, b5, c5, take away all of the squares on the 6th rank from the black rook. So that's kind of the idea. We have rook, not rook to e8, we have rook f to d8 and pawn to c5. Okay, we have rook to a6 going after the a2 pawn, and rook to e1. For the moment, the pawn cannot be captured as the rook is stuck guarding the knight on e6. So king to f7 defending the rook, and now Wei Yi plays bishop to f2. And it's a very funny move, because you could also just play a3, and nothing really for black there. But no, Wei Yi wants to play creative chess, and he goes bishop to f2, which is inviting rook to d2, and it's hard to say what Wei Yi had in mind after rook to d2 is played. Probably something like bishop to h4, and then I guess if rook captures, then you play b4 and b5, and then you're doing very well. But black is by no means obligated to capture on c2. So it's sort of a move where Sam would have to burn a lot of time in order to figure this out. Instead, he goes rook to d7. He invests some 3 minutes into this and declines this invitation. We have bishop to h4. Now, bishop to h4 is even better than in the line that we've shown with rook to d2. Knight captures on f4, and now rook to e7 check. So Sam allows Wei Yi to grab hold of the 2nd rank and promote his rook to a pig. Rook captures on e7. We have king to g8, and now rook captures on c7. Knight e6 attacking the rook and also the c5 pawn. So the question is, do you go to c8 and keep an eye on your pawn? But it's a doubled pawn, so you might as well give one up, because you'll also have the other one as a passed pawn. So let's make room for that pawn and promote it into a passed pawn. Rook captures on b7, knight captures on c5, and the rook to b8 with check. We have king f7 and bishop to f2, going after the undefended knight. And here with knight to e4, it's still a fight. This game could go on for 100 more moves. But knight to a4 was played, and here Sam just makes it way too easy for Wei Yi to convert his advantage. So I'm sure you see it, but even if you don't see it, there are many ways to continue this game, because that knight is just never leaving. There's no way that knight can move. This is covered by the rook, this is covered by the pawn, this is covered by the bishop and the rook. So whenever the knight moves, the bishop just captures it. So even if you don't go after it right away, that knight is never entering the game. But rook b7, also you will lose the a7 pawn. That's even worse. King e6, and rook captures on a7. You have to trade. Rook captures, bishop captures, knight captures on b2, and now bishop to d4. Attacking the knight, we have knight to c4, and pawn to h4, keeping it on that g5 square, so g5 cannot be played. And now, yes, you're only up one pawn, but it's played on both sides of the board, so of course a bishop is a little bit better than knight, and the passed a pawn, the outside passed pawn, is always extremely unpleasant. But okay, Sam does have the active king d5. We have pawn to c3 and knight to b2. We have king to f2, king to e4, king to e2, and king to f4. We have bishop to f2, cutting off the black king from entering deeper into the position. King e4, also doing the same thing to the white king. We have king to d2, pawn to f4, and now king back to e2. The reason for this move is that if you go king to c2, which seems like a move you really want to play, then knight to d3 is annoying, attacking the bishop, and the bishop doesn't really have any good squares. And if you move it away from controlling e1, then knight e1 check picks up the g2 pawn. Then black gets a past f pawn, and black is the one pushing here. So after f4, we have king back to e2, knight a4, going after the c3 pawn, and now Wei Yi just advances it to c4. He says, I don't care about the a2 pawn because this pawn is then marching forward. Something like knight c3, king to d2, knight captures on a2, and now there's only one way to win it, but you guys are amazing players. Of course, you guys see it. Bishop c5. Take control over the b4 square, and that's it. The king controls the outer squares the knight can use. The knight is trapped, and you can just, play whatever you want because that knight is never entering the game. If you want, you can even capture it. And some g5 action, you even allow white to get a pass pawn. Black pawns are just too slow. Pawn to g6, there's nothing. Pawn to f3, you don't care. Captures queen, plays itself. So after c4, we have king to e5 and pawn to c5, where he starts advancing his passed pawn. Knight to c3 check. We have king f3 and knight captures on a2. Okay, now the king is a little bit closer to the action, but still just pawn to c6. The pawn is unstoppable. King d6, we have king captures on f4. Again, we can view it through the lens of the principle of two weaknesses, one being the pawn on c6, or rather for white it's a strength, obviously. But the other weakness are the 2 pawns on the king side, and the white king will just gobble them up. So knight c3, we have bishop to e1, attacking the knight. If you pick up the knight, of course, that's game over. Knight d5 check, we have king to g5. King captures on c6 and pawn to g3. Of course, you're not gonna fall for the knight captures and then king captures and then knight f4 check picks up the g2 pawn, and then it's a draw. Pawn to g3. This is crucial to win the game. We have knight e7, king to f6. You will win those pawns. There's no rushing it. King to d7, king to f7, and now king to d8, bishop to d2. We have king to d7, and now bishop to f4. Knight to d5, attacking the bishop, and only now king captures on g6. Of course, now a trade is out of the question because you're up material. King to e6, we have king captures on h5. Now Wei Yi is up 2 pawns, and only a terrible misunderstanding between Wei Yi and himself could cause him to not win this game. So king to f6, we have bishop to d2, knight to c7, and bishop to c3 with check. Now it's only a matter of positioning your king and bishop properly and advancing the pawn. That's pretty much it. King f7, king to g5, knight e6 check, king to f5, and knight to c7. Of course, it's not impossible to blunder, but you have to be careful. Blundering a check and losing a bishop would be one way to do it. Although you'd have to play something like king f4. So pawn to h5, knight to d5, and bishop to d4. We have knight e7 check, king to g5. Always useful to keep your king in this position in regards to the knight, because then the knight needs 4 moves to check the white king. We have knight to d5 and pawn to g4. We have knight back to e7, bishop to c5, again hoping to capture because then the game is over on the spot. Knight d5 and king to f5. We have knight f6, pawn to h6. We have knight to d7 and bishop to d6. King to g8, king to g6, and now king to h8. We have pawn to g5, king to g8, h7 check. We have king h8, and now a rather beautiful finish, king to f7. And he was in this position on move 73 that Sam Sevian resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So Wei Yi is one of the other players who will join some other players in the quarterfinals of the FIDE World Cup, entering the final 8. So 3 are going into the FIDE Candidates Tournament. The final 8, one of them is Wei Yi. It's gonna be a very, very interesting tournament for everyone, because we'll have to watch Wei Yi play. And yeah, here it's there's not much to discuss. I mean, king captures on h7, g6 check, and the pawn just promotes. King h6, g7. There are no tricks, no traps, no stalemates, nothing. So, of course, after king f7, he resigned. And a beautiful, beautiful victory for Wei Yi, eliminating Sam Sevian and going into the quarterfinals. So we're going to discuss everything that happened in this round, but after we check out tomorrow's tiebreaks, as tomorrow we have some excellent, excellent games. So very much looking forward to that as well, as I'm sure you guys are looking forward to, those special few, but pretty much all of them. So yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Very nicely done by Wei Yi. b. As usual, it was a pretty big blunder by Sam. Like I said, I thought it was a sacrifice, but he said later in an interview that no, he just missed that. And I mean, yeah, at this level, playing something like that, that'd be, not the best. So yeah, really hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Yoon Young, Max Anderson, Udo Brandt, Eddie Sphere, and David Gasparian for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you still haven't, first link in the description below, download Lotus Chess and learn how to prepare for your games like a human being, but with engine preparation. If you know what I mean. Try it. It's amazing. See you soon.